Just when you thought you could turn your back and walk away, the dark cloud of human indignity follows you. You have no choice but to turn and look it in the eye. It's the sex offender hit list.
Forest City, Iowa. Sexually abusing a child is sending this chomo to prison for many years. This is Walter Henry Stachar III from Garner. He's 44 years old and he was sentenced Tuesday to up to 25 years behind bars and must serve at least 70% of that sentence before becoming eligible for parole. A jury had found Stachar guilty of second-degree sexual abuse after a 3-day trial in Winnebago County that began on January 31st. Stachar was accused in August of last year of sexually assaulting a victim under the age of 10. And of course, when he gets out of the joint, he's going to have to register for life on the Iowa Sex Offender Registry. See ya, chomo. Collin County, Texas. A man who repeatedly abused a child and claimed that God told him to do it has been sentenced to life in prison without parole. 46-year-old Christopher Caudill from Dallas admitted to sexually assaulting the female victim from the time she was just 11 years old until she was 17. You may remember about a month or so ago when he was found guilty of this crime, and I told you that we'd be watching him. Here we are. Back in November of 21, when the 18-year-old told a family friend about the abuse, that friend then told the police. The victim said that during the abuse, Caudill would say God told him to do it, and that's what they did in the Bible. Collin County officials say Caudill later stated he abused the victim because they had a relationship that was a love like they had in the Bible. A jury sentenced Caudill to life in prison for the continuous sexual abuse of a child, and by law, those sentenced for continuous sexual abuse of a child are not eligible for parole. Therefore, see ya, chomo. An 18-year-old New Windsor man was sentenced in Orange County Court on Monday to 7 years in state prison and 20 years of post-release supervision in connection with his previous guilty plea to rape of a minor. The sentence imposed was the maximum available under law. Benitez had previously admitted in court that being 18 or older, he had sex with a person who was less than 15 years old. We owe an obligation to protect all children from sexual predators, said District Attorney David Hoovler. Cases like this are both sensitive and challenging for police and prosecutors. My office will continue to provide support for victims of sexual assault and seek to hold offenders accountable for their actions, like Mr. Alejandro Benitez here. Well, he then commended the survivor for coming forward and being heard. See ya, chomo. A Delaware teacher's pastor has been arrested on child sexual abuse material charges. The Delaware Attorney General's office announced this Friday. This is 74-year-old James Dryden. He was charged with 10 counts of child sexual abuse material possession after a state investigation found that Dryden had uploaded child sexual abuse material. Authorities were initially alerted by Microsoft-generated cyber tips that Dryden's IP address had accessed the explicit content, and they found more pornographic material when they searched his house. Dryden was a children's pastor with the Stein Highway Church of God in Seaford, Delaware, for more than 20 years. He's not charged with contacting any children, and the Attorney General's office said they didn't know of any victims from his church, but urged the public to come forward with any information given the nature of Dryden's work and the fact that it brought him into regular contact with children every day. Dryden is being held on $500,000 bail at a Sussex County Corrections Facility. Old-ass priestly-looking chomo. A Pine City predator who used social media to sexually exploit hundreds of minors was slammed with a nearly 3-decade-long prison sentence. Prosecutors said Monday that Caleb Vincent McLaughlin, 26, was sentenced to 29 years behind bars following his guilty plea in a chilling scheme where he posed as a teenager to bait kids as young as 11 years old into creating and sending sexually explicit materials. McLaughlin's twisted quest started in January of 2019 and wielded multiple online aliases to ensnare over 200 minor victims in Minnesota as well as Wisconsin. He presented himself as younger, sometimes claiming to be just 17, to better lure in his targets. The predator also used his victims for personal sexual assaults, capturing the video abuse to produce child sexual abuse material, and some of which he also distributed online. During the sentencing, Chief Judge Patrick J. Schlitz condemned McLaughlin's actions, expressing that McLaughlin's behavior was shocking, even to someone like me, he said, a federal judge who has been sentencing child sexual offenders for over 20 years. Nacogdoches, Texas. A Lufkin man was sentenced to prison Thursday in a Nacogdoches court for numerous child sex crimes. According to a press release from the District Attorney Andrew E. Jones, Ernesto Sandoval del Rosario, a 35-year-old, received a 50-year sentence as well as 2 concurrent 10-year sentences for aggravated sexual offenses against a child. Sandoval del Rosario was sentenced in the 420th Judicial District Court in Nacogdoches on Thursday, and according to the Nacogdoches County Judicial records, Sandoval del Rosario was charged with 4 counts of aggravated sexual assault of a child, as well as 2 counts of continuous sex abuse of a child under 14 in 2020. The press release said a family member of the victim became aware of the abuse on May 5th of 2020. This is according to the Sandoval del Rosario's arrest record. You know, it's kind of messed up that it takes 4 years to put someone away for a crime like that. Well, fortunately, he was held behind bars this entire time, so no big deal. But Sandoval del Rosario will be eligible for parole after serving 30 years. See you in 30, or maybe not, Chomo. A North Fort Myers man was sentenced to more than a decade in federal prison Monday for the distribution and possession of dozens of images and videos of child sexual abuse material. U.S. District Judge Sherry Polster Campbell sentenced Cody Ray Seifert, a 30-year-old here, to 10 years and 10 months in federal prison Monday for distribution and possession of images and videos depicting the sexual abuse of children. Seifert chatted online with an undercover agent between September 28th and October 4th of 2021. It took him a few years to lock him up, didn't it? And they say he sent several child sexual abuse video files to the agent. The social media app also reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that Seifert had uploaded videos and images of child sexual abuse material between September 27th and October 10th of 21. In interviews with the federal agents, Seifert confirmed his use of that app, his account, and that he had sent child sexual abuse material to the undercover agent. He said that the youngest child depicted in the photos and videos he distributed was just 9 years old. Alright, he looks pretty mad, don't he? Well, he should be smiling. He got a slap on the wrist from the judge, which I don't understand. This comes from Fort Wayne, Indiana. This guy received his sentence today after pleading guilty to possession of child pornography, or child sexual abuse material. This is John Arthur Schell, a 63-year-old. He was arrested at 7:50 in the morning on September 29th of last year and charged. The investigation began just a month earlier in August, when the Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force detectives received a cyber tip from NCMEC, identifying Schell as someone who downloaded and viewed the child sexual abuse material. The Allen County Superior Court sentenced Schell to 3 years suspended, no time in jail, with 2 years community control probation. Wow. They need their heads checked. Toledo, Ohio. A former Elmore police officer, yep, another cop, was sentenced to 13 years in prison after being convicted of child sexual abuse material possession charges. This is 29-year-old Samuel Kerp of Oregon, Ohio. He was sentenced after pleading guilty to receipt and distribution of child sexual abuse material. He must also serve 15 years of supervised release following his imprisonment and pay $36,000 in restitution. Court documents said that from April till June of 2020, Kerp, who was employed as a police officer with the village of Elmore, used social media apps, Kik and Snapchat, to distribute child sexual abuse material images and videos to other users. According to the Department of Justice, investigators were able to determine using IP addresses that Kerp had done this while on duty as a police officer and while off duty at his parents' house where he lived at the time. A serial child molester who hacked the Jacksonville Jaguars scoreboards during 3 2018 season games was sentenced to 220 years in federal prison. The Department of Justice let this out in a news release on today. Samuel Thompson, a 53-year-old of St. Augustine, was found guilty of the following charges: producing, receiving, and possessing child sexual abuse material, producing child sexual abuse material while required to register as a sex offender, violating the Sex Offender Registration and Notification Act, sending unauthorized damaging commands to a protected computer, as well as possessing a firearm as a convicted felon. The prison sentence will be followed by a lifetime of supervised release. A lifetime after 220 years. Okay. He will also be ordered to forfeit computers and a gun that were used in the offenses. I don't know what you're going to use the gun for in prison. I mean, you know. See ya, Chomo. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Indiana says 47-year-old Ryan Watkins of Lagouti was given a 10-year sentence in federal prison after pleading guilty to possession of sexually explicit material involving minors. According to the court documents in Indiana, there on multiple occasions between January and April of 2023, Watkins viewed and downloaded images of child sexual abuse material to his cell phone, which of course is linked to an internet cloud-based data storage platform, and that's how they busted him. The images numbered over 600, and the depicted kids were all under 12 years old. Watkins was already a registered sex offender at the time of the crimes, having been convicted in 2010 of child molesting in Davies County. I don't get how they can just let him have internet access unless he was sneaking it. Somehow I doubt it. The court says that this case was brought as part of Project Safe Childhood, which is a nationwide initiative launched back in May of 2006 by the Department of Justice to combat the growing epidemic of child sexual exploitation and abuse. The appeal of a Newton Falls man convicted of child sex crimes has been denied by the Ohio 11th District Court of Appeals. Back in September of 23, 42-year-old Lawrence Vickers was sentenced to 58 months in prison on 7 counts of unlawful sexual conduct with a minor, 1 count of illegal use of a minor in a nudity-oriented material or performance, and 1 count of disseminating matter harmful to a juvenile. The charges stem from Vickers having sexual contact with a 13-year-old girl, as well as sending her a nude photograph. He was also found to be in possession of a nude photograph of another minor. Vickers argued that the court improperly imposed consecutive sentences, contradicting the overriding purposes and principles of sentencing. Well, guess what, Chomo? The appeal court found this appeal to be without merit and upheld that sentence. Go do your time and don't cry like a baby.
Happy birthday, dear Ellie.
Now, Ellie, remember, this is our special secret.
Okay, Uncle Jim.
1 in 5 children is sexually abused before they turn 18.
Make a wish, but remember, it's a secret.
Do you know the signs?
I just want everyone to go home.
Learn more about the risks of child sexual abuse at sapria.org.